Thanks ever so. And as you say, a warm welcome this afternoon to everybody. It's amazing that we're already halfway through on day 3 of this year's summit, a festival of ideas. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jerry Porteous. I'm the founder and director of the Housing Learning and Improvement Network, or HousingLIN for short. And the team have put on a fantastic week-long program of events for you. We have over 40 speakers throughout the week, and I think we've had over 600 people now registered to join us, which will result in perhaps about 2,500 streams, both live today, but also those people who watch again at their leisure. As Sally mentioned, please do use the Twitter hashtag or X hashtag HLIN Summit 24 and use your socials to post any comments or observations during the course of this session. This session and the summit itself is the 4th virtual summit we've held since the pandemic, and in fact is also the 12th annual conference since the HousingLIN became independent of government. Prior to this, we managed the Extra Care Housing Capital Fund and involved in building telecare in England. And some of you will remember the telecare network that used to exist at that time and the community of practice we developed. Well, that and all the LIN's activities are a networked approach to support policy implementation, to capture the latest research and findings, and to help stimulate innovation in the way we deliver our care support services within a housing setting, including the use of technology and digital applications. So very much from happy to TAPPI, and these will be themes I know that will be picked up during the course of this session. Before I hand over to Susan Kay, who's going to chair this session, just a few words about our sponsors. The whole event for this week wouldn't be possible without the generous support of both our headline sponsors and associate sponsors, and in particular thanks to Angus and the team at Tunstall for your support of this session, but also as a headline sponsor of the conference and the week-long programme of events. It not only helped us run this event, but also all our events during the course of the year, and one of the unique selling points of the HousingLIN is we're able to maintain all our news and events and activities for free for the 20-odd thousand members who sign up for our newsletters and various communiques. But moving on to today's programme, I'm delighted that we're joined by Susan Kay. Sue is the Chief Exec of the Dunhill Medical Trust. She's heavily involved in a number of innovative, inspiring research right across the country, not just on TAPPI, but if any of you joined us this morning in our Equality, Diversity and Inclusion session, we focused on the Amar Bari project, looking at the housing needs and aspiration of the Bangladeshi community in East London, another DMT funded project. So you've been really helpful and supportive of the LIN. We're delighted that you could chair this session, and I'm going to hand over to you now.
Oh, thanks so much for that introduction, Jeremy. As Jeremy said, I'm Sue Kay. I'm the Chief Executive of the Dunhill Medical Trust. Just in case any of you don't know who we are, we're an independently endowed charitable foundation, and we mostly support academic and clinical researchers who are working to understand and treat ageing and age-related disease, and academic and community innovators to improve later life health and well-being. I'd like to add my welcome to this session. We've called it Navigating the Digital Switchover, Turning TAPPI On. If that wasn't what you were expecting, then perhaps you'd better leave now, but actually no, don't. I really urge you to stay, because we're going to be talking about something that affects us all, whether we like it or not, and it'll continue to do so with increasing speed and spread. It's about how we go about living our lives every day, and in particular within the context of integrating housing, health and care. I'm joined by a great set of speakers. We've got Professor Roy Sandbach, who's led the Technology for an Ageing Population Panel for Innovation Inquiry, or TAPPI, with such passion and energy, together with Deborah Edwards, who lives in the London Borough of Haringey, which was one of the 6 TAPPI testbed sites, which we're going to be telling you more about, and is one of the inquiry's marvellous co-production champions. We've also got Alison Scurfield, the CEO of the Tech Services Association, who's been one of our fabulous service delivery partners on TAPPI, and providing some really, really great support to the testbed sites. They're all going to be giving us an insight into the work and a sneak peek of the outcomes and recommendations from the second phase of that programme, which we're going to be publishing next month, I believe. We're also joined by Dr. Hannah Marston of the Open University, who's going to draw on her work on age-friendly cities and communities and examine the broader societal impact of digital exclusion, something that we hope that the recommendations of TAPPI can really help us to avoid. Once we've heard from our speakers, there'll be plenty of time for Q&A, but if you've, as Sally said, please do put up any questions that occur to you as you go along in the Q&A, and I'll do my best to pick them up. But first, I want to introduce our first speaker, Angus Honeysett, who's Head of Global Market Insights at Tunstall Healthcare. He's going to walk us through, I guess, a bit of a state of the nation, what's going on in the integration of housing, health and social care, and how technology is enabling this. Most importantly, particularly for those of us that have been involved in the TAPPI inquiry, the systems thinking that puts people at the centre rather than thinking about technology as a product or a thing. So I'm going to pause there and I'm going to welcome Angus.
Well, thanks so very much. And I'm just going to share my screen. Jerome, could you just confirm that you can see my screen?
It's coming up. Yeah, that's perfect. Great.
Perfect. Good stuff. Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for the introduction, Sue. My name's Angus Honeysett. I am Head of Global Market Insight, formerly Head of Market Access at Tunstall Healthcare. And I'm going to talk to you today about what's happening in the market, an overview, the importance of understanding and planning for the digital switchover, and some of the operational risks and logistical challenges it may present. But firstly, a little bit about Tunstall. We've operated in a technology-based housing space for over 65 years. We designed and developed the very first warden call system. Using technology to improve people's quality of life remains at the heart of what we do, and we employ over 3,000 people globally and work in the housing, health and social care sectors. We directly monitor over 1.4 million people worldwide, but support over 5.4 million people with our equipment solutions. We have over 12,000 clients and around 200 monitoring centres using our software. But before talking about technology and technology-based solutions, I think it's important to highlight what's happening in the market. And firstly, health and social care emerging. Now, this is both an ambition and ambitious, but one that is happening and that will most likely take a long time to deliver. We must recognise it's happening and the impact it has on housing, health, social care, and more fundamentally, citizens. Secondly, there's a growing rental market in retirement communities rather than owner-occupier. We need to make sure we understand and adapt as this market grows. Thirdly, the expansion of public and private partnerships and the principles of collaborative working through the development of the ICSs and their role to integrate housing, health and care. Key to this is co-production, that is organisations working together to deliver excellent solutions for residents. Of course, we've got the upgrades to the national communications networks, the move from analogue to digital solutions and the opportunities it presents, together with the challenges of limited funding and solution planning. And changing expectations mean there are multiple housing options for retirees, and we must design personalised technology services to support everyone from older people in supported living environments to people enjoying more active lifestyles in integrated retirement communities. But we know there's a crisis due to an ageing population, and between now and 2040, it's predicted there's going to be an extra 6 million over 65s. Now, I'm sure you're already putting in place things that will enhance people's care for longer, but we need to add technology to people's lives to assist with keeping them out of the care system. However, the ageing population is at the forefront of everyone's minds, irrespective of health, housing or care. Technology plays a fundamental part in supporting citizens. But for too long, social care, the least likely place for digital transformation, has languished behind other sectors. As pressures escalate and citizens who draw on care and support become more vocal about what matters to them, there is cause for optimism. curiosity about the potential of AI, new and inventive technologies such as robotics, and tailored care-tech experiences are ushering in a new dawn of demand from both citizens and commissioners. However, the sector must acknowledge that much work needs to be done to build the firm foundations needed to make the most of these technologies. Co-produced solutions which properly meet the day-to-day needs of citizens, the continued drive from analog to digital solutions, remote working, and an integrated approach to data being just a handful. So back in October 2021, the 10 TAPPI principles were launched, focusing on building technology into housing. These principles need to become embedded in our everyday practice as housing plays a fundamental part in supporting citizens. This, together with moving to digital solutions, presents some fantastic opportunities, but we mustn't underestimate the importance of understanding the amount of planning required. To receive the benefits presented by TAPPI, it's important to be on a digital journey and open to digital opportunities. That could be co-production, that is involving people to co-create the solutions. Cost effectiveness, offering value for money. Prevention, where we're focused on preventative models of support rather than reactive ones. Or person-centered, where putting citizens first and giving them control over their environment, care, and support needs leads to better outcomes. All of these things and more are important, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing about the work of the TAPPI testbed shortly. The move to digital presents possibilities to put predictive and preventative solutions in place and to work collaboratively to do so. We can drive the sector from being reactive to delivering high-quality proactive models, enhancing outcomes for citizens, improving efficiencies, and redesigning services, all around the user. AI, machine learning, the use of data are hugely important, but we need to educate people to understand the value of data. People getting value in return for providing it, all of which enables us to come up with more creative solutions. We mustn't think digital is now installed, that's it. We need to continue to evolve, think differently, challenge cultural norms, and develop new ways of working in a digital world. Moving to proactive and preventative solutions across housing, health, and care will revolutionize how services are run with data and information driving improvements. There is, however, more to this than just getting hold of the data. We need to define robust methodologies for analyzing and using it effectively to improve decision-making across all parts of the system. Aligned to this is the importance of maintaining data integrity, GDPR compliance, and standards. Whilst these shouldn't be a barrier, they inevitably are, and we need effective solutions to make sure data is secure at all times. It's therefore important that digital solutions are developed in the right standards-based way. Tunstall solutions are designed to ensure safe connectivity of alarm paths, are cyber secure and scalable for future growth. There is no doubt that as we continue to invest in and integrate technology into our services, it gives citizens greater ability to become more involved in their own health and care. And data plays a particularly important role in empowering people to manage their own conditions. Remote patient monitoring means people can take their own readings, sharing these with the right people at the right time. Apps are being developed so that information can be shared quickly and easily, often delaying or preventing entry into health or social care as issues are highlighted and dealt with quickly. The more citizens are involved with data and managing their own health, the more they'll understand how to manage better on a day-to-day basis. That can only be a good thing, as it will reduce pressure on the system, maximizing outputs while reducing investment required. There is certainly potential for better solutions and services that deliver cost avoidance and savings. However, implementing new solutions and culture change separately, let alone at the same time, is difficult and time-consuming. Getting it right requires excellent co-design, outcomes-based solutions, and investing the right time and money to get the best bang for your buck. With increased funding, improved decision-making through ICSs, and better integration of technology, we will be able to reconfigure and integrate services. Now, perhaps that's the holy grail, But we must continue to engage with senior stakeholders within central and local government to explain the benefits and return on investment that technology-based solutions can deliver. It's essential, though, that service providers and citizens are involved in this transformation if we're to innovate, embrace technology fully and successfully, and to deliver new approaches, creating benefits for both citizens and the system. To support this, Tunstall have listened to what you want and need. We've developed and are continuing to develop new and exciting IP-enabled group living solutions. These are suitable for new scheme builds, refits or partial upgrades that use existing cabling, meaning minimum disruption for you and your residents, as well as other analog to digital upgrade pathways. We can deliver these at pace or over time in an affordable way. Of course, we can't underestimate the importance of integrating housing, health and care, and the need to get on with it. Many of you have heard me talk previously about simply doing it rather than continuing to talk about it. But we're still talking about it. We're getting better, slowly. But what will it take to drive fundamental change? Well, working together is in everyone's interest, with the key word being integrated. A large part of the population have housing, health and care needs, and it makes sense to join them up at home, where they want to be. Shared common goals are also important. It's about population health, housing and care working together to put the citizen at the heart of decisions made about them and how they want to live their lives. Of course, all three are dependent on each other. If we don't do a good job with care, citizens will need the health system. And if we don't keep citizens well, it has an impact on housing. We need to have a truly joined up approach, an integrated approach, but most importantly, we need to listen to citizens, understand their everyday needs and aspirations, and work together to bridge gaps, whether it be in health, housing, or care. So this slide demonstrates there are significant benefits realised from these and other initiatives. And points I want to make are these. Firstly, that citizens from any walk of life or social standing must be at the centre of everything we do, whether that's through early intervention, improving their well-being, or increasing their independence. This isn't just from a health and social care perspective. Housing is a critical piece of the puzzle, and technology needs to be integrated wherever possible. Secondly, that support, including technology-based support, should be delivered at home wherever possible. And thirdly, that as citizen outcomes are improved, it has a direct positive impact on housing and care and delivering cost efficiencies for primary, secondary and social care. For example, improved condition management and medication compliance has a clear impact on decreasing GP visits. Clinicians are able to target patients that need support rather than those that just need to be monitored, and early intervention can prevent future, often high-cost care and support being required. Using technology to support people at home is low cost, means citizens can stay at home for longer and increases quality of life. Likewise, relatively low-cost telehealth or telecare systems can help avoid hospital admission, delay and prevent the need for residential care, and reduce carer burnout. And fourthly, that technology supports all areas, both the citizens and the system. It's about working in partnership with housing, ICSs, local authorities and commissioners, understanding what is required and adapting as things change, not to be driven by contracts, but in providing solutions. We often need to go back a stage, understand outcomes required and what the problems are. We can then work together to co-design the best solution. It's a bit of, don't tell us what you want, tell us the problem you have, and let's come up with the best solution together. But it's difficult, as technology has historically been seen as a barrier. Cultural change is required, which in turn needs early engagement. We must lead from the top to ensure stakeholders input at an early stage into how technology can help them and the citizens they support. There is still fear that needs to be addressed. Stakeholders need to know that technology is an enabler to help them, not replace them, and users need to feel assured that tech is there to enrich their lives and enhance wellness and happiness. Culture change should be outcomes-led, and whilst as a nation we're improving, we still have a long way to go. Indeed, defining outcomes that is what we want to achieve, for whom is difficult and can take a long time due to many people being involved. But let's think about how that can be done. And what I've done here is I've reinvented the SMART principle, with S standing for simple. Define outcomes that are simple and easy to understand. Meaningful, make sure the workforce understands what's expected of them and is fully engaged. Agreed means working collaboratively with the workforce, seeking agreement to embed outcomes and cultural change. We should always review stuff, include system review and continuous improvement as part of the service design. And test and retest. Don't be frightened to change, and if things don't work, fix them. Fail fast and fail quickly, albeit safely. Culture change also applies to citizens, and even understanding how to access housing or care services is often unknown. When needed, people, that is carers, family members or close friends, can be at crisis point and will attempt to access any service that will listen to them, even if it's not appropriate. Even if citizens understand how to navigate the system, it's still difficult. We need to simplify things by having easy to access services, efficient referral processes, and solutions for citizens to get the support they need quickly and easily. Too often, citizens need help right now, but don't even understand how to access the support they need in the first place. When they get past that barrier, it takes time, and often time the citizen doesn't have to allocate workers, create care plans, and agree what's needed. So in conclusion, we must always focus on citizen outcomes. We must be curious but measured. There are many new technologies, but making sure the right ones are procured to improve outcomes for residents is important. We need to think about working together. Interoperability is a buzzword. Interoperability is a buzzword, but we must think about it seriously. Housing, health, and social care working together. We need to think about redefining how we do things. If we were to start again, what will we do differently? But perhaps more importantly, why do things need to be done differently? And lastly, we should follow the TAPPI principles. The best solutions are co-produced, person-centered, adaptable, and outcomes-focused. Regarding the digital switchover, it's happening now. Upgrading to IP-enabled solutions is critically important, whilst understanding there are likely to be new challenges. But we must be willing to work together, continuing what we do best, which is delivering excellent services for the citizens we serve. Thank you, Sue. Back to you.
No, thank you, Angus. I think that's a really, really good start to our session now. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Roy.
Off mute. Good start. Hello, everyone. My name's Roy Sandbach, and thanks, Jerome, for setting, and thanks, Sue, and thanks, Angus, for setting me up. Absolutely brilliant. I'm going to ask you, Jerome, just to take me through the slides. I'll tell you when. So my name's Roy Sandbach, and I've had the privilege over the past several years to chair TAPPI. I am independent. What that means is I don't have any significant expertise in the context of any of the things, frankly, that we're talking about here. But what I can do is I can listen. And well, actually, my partner probably wouldn't say that, but nevertheless, I can listen. And what I'd like to do today is to just help us all to think a bit about not just TAPPI itself and how the digital switchover can, if you like, fuel the application of some of the principles that Angus was talking about, but equally what needs to happen and what we can all do about it, right? I mean, this is not about someone else doing something. This is about us doing something. So I've got 7 minutes. And as anybody who's ever heard me speak before will realize, that's like impossible. But the plan here is a bit of background, a bit of what we've learned, especially in the most recent bit of the TAPPI inquiry, then what needs to happen, and then a few challenges. Okay, these are personal insights that lead to challenges for all of you. You can all have my charts, by the way. I'm not precious about them. And if you want to chat with me, you can all do that as well. I am, in theory, retired. Next chart, please, Jerome. Right, the background is pretty simple. Well, probably nearly 15 years ago now, Lord Richard Best, together with Jeremy, worked through something called TAPPI, which was housing for the aging population, a panel for innovation. And what we've done is just twisted that in recent times to TAPPI, which is technology for housing for our aging population. And we did an inquiry which was published a little while ago now, which was based on research and expert witness discussions, funded by Dunhill Medical, and thanks to Sue and her team for supporting us. Next chart, please. The phase 1 panel was made up of industry leaders and policymakers, and it was linked to several other. By the way, in this context, there have been more reports than you could possibly imagine. However, this is an opportunity point that we're at right now, because there's a digital switchover which is introducing technology into the conversation, and that's absolutely crucial. This time it's a point in time, a sort of step change opportunity, and that's why we're talking about this right now. Next chart, please. We learnt in TAPPI 1 that people must be at the heart, and Angus has eloquently talked about that. But we also learned, of course, that processes and systems are very siloed. Health people, absolutely. Look, it's not a surprise, is it? You know about what you do, but you don't know about what other people do. It's like a given. And what we need to do in the context of technology and housing and health and care is we need to get people talking together, working together, collaborating. Processes are difficult. Frankly, we found that knowledge and training was patchy at best. We did talk to occupational therapists and many others, medics as well. Some of the training in the value of technology and what is available in the context of housing and our older and more vulnerable population is pretty patchy. We developed the TAPPI principles, and we put some global best practice in that report. I won't go on any more about that now, if you could, but it's worth reading. We moved to TAPPI 2, which was essentially to take the TAPPI principles and see whether or not we could test them and bend their application in some practical environments. And that's what we did. We took 6 testbed areas, and we wanted to test the principles. Next chart, please. These were the 6 locality testbeds. They've all had different characteristics, and indeed engaged in different ways, because the organizations are different organizations with their own issues and opportunities. However, we've learned some common things, if you like, common lessons in all of them. Next chart. What have we learned? Well, some of these might be sort of obvious, but are sort of central to getting the value of technology applied correctly. First, get the basics right. I mean, I've banged on for quite a while about people in today's world, they should have a reliable and affordable internet connection. Indeed, my own opinion, by the way, is that older people should get free broadband. And that when we took away the right to a free TV license, we should have actually replaced it by free broadband. But that's just Roy Sandbach speaking. But we've got to get the basics right. Co-produce early. Angus has talked about that, and other people are going to talk about it in this call as well. Deborah, in particular, has been absolutely crucial in this context. So I'm just setting her up for her piece. We need to make it seamless. What I mean by that is it was quite remarkable how much we learned that people like care tech devices, but they like them if they work with their current telephone, with their smartphone, with their Alexas, if they've got them. We cannot make all of this stuff different. Interoperability is the sector word, but working together, making these things work together is central. It's a given. It must be a given. Ensure it's affordable. I mean, I can talk a little bit more about that a bit later on, actually, because broadband and maintenance and the devices themselves can be expensive, and we've got to find a way somehow to make the hurdle of affordability a small one. Older people do worry about online safety and scams. They're being told to worry about online safety and scams, so they do. And then finally, the best examples within our test beds have been those organizations that have provided support during the execution of the technologies into different environments. But we have to realize that this is a community that needs that support. So there are operational lessons. Next chart, please. We moved from 10 TAPPI principles to 6. Next chart, please. And these are they. And my hope would be that these would be on the desks of almost everyone who works in the context of healthcare and housing and the application of technology in those environments. Just get these things on your desk and say to yourself almost every day, is what I'm doing fitting perfectly well with these fundamental principles for the use of technology? Next chart, please. There are some strategic lessons from TAPPI Phase 2, which go beyond the operational ones. Honestly, we need to catalyze national change. I'll talk about that in a minute. We must reduce complexity and make things people-centric. That's co-production, and it's central. But it's tough. One of the biggest difficulties is that there's no space in people's day-to-day operations to include change management and innovation. That is a fundamental issue. And indeed, I just heard yesterday an economist, a very well-known economist in the UK, Mariana Mazzucato, say that about our public sector. We've been stripped back so much that change management is difficult. So think about that. We need to create a movement for delivery, and you're all being enrolled in that. But there is also a massive consumer market gap for families like all of us. Where do we go in order to find out more about technology? And finally, can we train people better in care technology as it changes so quickly? Next chart, please. My own view, we've got to think big and act big on this, because this is a time where we're in crisis. So we should have a crisis response. My hope would be that any new government would look at a prevention-focused, technology-enabled independent living strategy as we execute the digital switchover. I think the integrated care boards need to step up, and if they don't, who should step up? We do need to dramatically reconstruct our professional training that uses technology, that relates to technology as much as possible as that technology changes quickly. In addition, I'm a scientist, and I firmly believe that we need a translational centre that focuses on care. We've got them in this country for lots of sexy technology areas like gene therapy and energy systems and advanced manufacturing. But we don't seem to have anything that really pulls together in an area of such public interest as care. And finally, we don't have a business-led accredited care tech market for ordinary people. Think about those things. Next chart, please. Right. Honestly, I'm open for conversation. You can get me on LinkedIn. You can get me on Twitter, although I do tweet about Sunderland Football Club a lot, so I apologise. Thanks very much indeed for your time. I hope I've given you some food for thought. Back to you, Sue.
Thanks, Roy. Informative, provocative, energetic as ever. I do encourage you to follow Roy on Twitter. It's highly entertaining, if nothing else. So, yeah. Thanks for the heads up about co-production, because we are about to hear from Deborah. But just before that, we've just got a short video to share with you about the importance and the experiences of co-production that people have had during the TAPPI programme. Over to you, Jerome.
If you open the door to people to make a contribution, you can be almost always certain that they will. And co-production is about listening to people, gaining their insights, and responding with something that works for them.
It was so important to get the voices of the tenants to make sure that the actual people who are receiving the services and the technology are central to decision making about that technology.
That's very important, because he was giving them full control over what was going into their homes. Anybody that comes along and says, you're getting this because we want you to have it. Waste of space, waste of time.
What do we want our independent living offer to be? And what do we want our standard housing design of the future to look like? So we've taken TAPPI as that opportunity to work in partnership with our tenants to say, how do we design this? How do we co-develop what you want your home of the future to look like? Working in true co-production fashion, that's how it has to be. It has to be an individual choice for the tenants. It can't be organisational down. We can't say here's what you get and nothing else. It has to come down to choice.
I love that. I think it says it all, and I'm going to come back to that in the Q&A at the end. But in the meantime, Deborah, over to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah, I'm resident in Haringey, and TAPPI came and met us. So when TAPPI came, we thought this was another tick box exercise that somebody's going to do, but they needed a few faces of old people and disabled people to go along with it. But we were, we heard about it and we were excited, but we were a bit apprehensive. However, as time went by and we realized that this was, wow, somebody actually wanted us to be involved and wanted to know what would make our everyday lives better, we were actually quite excited, and that's when I volunteered to be one of the co-production, one of the TAPPI champions. I believe TAPPI worked for us because of co-production. Someone didn't go shopping and decided to buy a few gadgets and say, let's take it to an old people support housing. I sure they need something to lift a kettle. I sure they need this and that. Dershan, who was the link worker for us here, part of the TAPPI, came along, had conversations with us individually. He had conversation with us as a team, all the residents who was taking part of co-production. And during that conversation of listening to our strengths, our limitations, things we got pleasure from, then we were able to find out, he was able to pick out gadgets and different things that would help us lead a more independent life. I'm very much about independent. Don't do things to me, come and talk to me and we'll do things together. So it took on from there, and then we were able to get, through the conversation, we were able to get different type of technology equipment. And I'll give you an example of a few, like for instance, something like a tablet works so different for so many different residents. For one resident, it was able to tell them the time they needed to take their medication. Another elderly person who sometimes forget things, when they were able to put a program in. So when they went to take the medication, if no accident, you'll say you already had your lunchtime one. So there's little gadget, little reminders of things for them. Whereas another tablet for another person, another gentleman here who's very much into planting and doing flowers and things like that. And in winter, he gets very low because of the weather and everything like that. And now myself, I could see the benefits of him having that. So now he's looking back on everything he did last spring, and he's making plans for what he's going to do when the weather gets better. So you see the mental, the well-being straight away there. Then you had the other resident who needed one for communication. So they were able to FaceTime family and relatives and things like that. I myself not long come back from holiday. I was able to FaceTime with some of the residents here. They were, it was quite excited. Some of them calling me and, talking to me and me showing off being on the beach and different things like that with them. So it has made a difference in their lives in different ways, because TAPPI came and they talked to us to find what will help us in life. Myself, the most important thing for me was being able to open my curtain. I never knew there was something out there that could be able to do that. Through TAPPI, I was able to get that. So now I didn't have to rely on someone to come and do that for me, or I didn't have to spend the majority of my winter with the curtains closed in my bedroom. So now when the benefits of that in the morning, the light, you feel better. Once you feel better and you feel more independent and more mobile, TAPPI not only, the conversation TAPPI had with us, it was holistic. They didn't come to see about just one side of it. Is how could we help you live better? How could we help you maintain your well-being, your health better? So it looked at us as a whole, not just one. It joined up everything together. And I think that's why TAPPI was successful. And living in a home with different people, and now TAPPI is gone, I could see the even better benefits of TAPPI, because now we have other residents who have gone out and bought equipment because they've seen how it has helped other people. And that's wanted to share.
That's super, Deborah. It really does bring it to life. And I think you gave some really great practical examples there, didn't you? Of the sorts of things that perhaps, if we're thinking about these things, as one of the people in the video said, from the organization down, that those people wouldn't think about. It's important that you're experiencing that and you're telling people what you need. So I think that's really helpful. Alison, I think you're up next, and you're going to tell us a bit more about the risks and challenges of the digital switchover and thinking about what's next for TAPPI.
Thank you so much, and welcome. Deborah, TAPPI will never be gone. We are going to create that legacy where we take it on and make sure it delivers, not just for what you're Haringey, but across the whole of the UK. So be reassured, we're here to support that. Alison Scurfield, I'm the Chief Executive of TSA, the national industry body, which is supporting 2.03 million people across the UK. We are the independent standard body outside deregulation, and with a trusted kite mark. And I'm going to talk through safety and quality and security. And that's some of the key themes that we've learned through TAPPI and reassured ourselves that we're on the right journey. Our vision is about people's everyday lives being enhanced, enriched and enabled by technology-enabled care. This has been played out within, with the work that we do in TAPPI and across the UK in wider programmes. But I just want to take us through, this is us, and we're UCAS body, and it's really important to me that we deliver against some of these seamless, independent, all of the key TAPPI principles, but it's got to have a bedrock of being safe and secure. So foundations of TAPPI. What the magic of TAPPI was, it was really enlifting and warming for somebody that's challenged tech-enabled care for 2-3 decades. I'm giving my age away now, but being connected in a digital world, as we've described, is really important. It's moving to a proactive, preventative, coordinated care model, and we completely keep talking about health, housing, and social care. It's about our third sector. It's about neighbourhood teams. It's about people wrapping services around an individual and making sure data is important, but people and systems are important. And we really need to, that change in culture we've seen throughout TAPPI, and I'm going to give you some examples. We've heard on that video around one of the test beds, you've heard about Haringey, but Beeld up in Scotland won the national award in Scotland last week. And it was so empowering that we're in Holyrood in a health and care ward, and in comes housing at the heart of communities. And some of the wonderful work that we heard during TAPPI, where they reduced by doing proactive preventative delivery, reduced ambulance call-outs. We've seen how this is a crisis in health, how we see during the winter where we see our ambulances queued up at the A&E, and then, dare I say, our vulnerable people left on a hospital ward, and the place that they go coming out of that is a care home. Beeld changed some of that, and they delivered it. 72% decrease in alarms coming into that National Monitoring Centre. But the key thing about Beeld and others in this programme was their leadership. Their CEO of housing has a health background. She drove innovation and really embraced TAPPI. As we heard in the video, it shaped their strategy for the next 5 years. It shaped their assets and design brief for what they're going to do to embed technology in a new model of housing care, which is absolutely fantastic. But there is the risks. Many of you on the call will have seen that last year with mobile technologies, we've seen lots of outages. We've seen outages where 50,000 units went down over 3 days. It's our job within TSA and Tech Quality to build strong resilience guidance to make sure that you on the call today can see those opportunities and embrace them. Now that's there, it has some key fundamental things about your business. Like, do you have a design authority in housing? What that means is a design authority with your critical IT department understanding the safety risk and the guidance of how you deliver an analog to digital shift. This needs to happen. If your analog to digital shift with less than 18 months to go is not on your risk register in housing, I would ask the question, why? Now, we all seen some of this before Christmas, the week before Christmas, in the House of Commons, Michelle Dolan, MP of DSIT, which is your science and your innovation, raised a big call to action to our communications providers. They developed and forced a communication strategy for all BT, Sky, TalkTalk to have a safe transition. 3 people died. 3 people died because there was no connectivity between our colleagues in our communications provision and the world of telecare. So it's really critical that we measure risk and we understand it and we work together. There's some key pieces of work. There's a national group. We had a call to action to our government last year that cross-government needs to take some responsibility, and it is there now. DLUC, Department of Health and Social Care, and our Secretary of State and the Innovation in Science and Technology. The National Action Group met in early January to pull together the Telecare Charter. What does that mean? The Telecare Charter can't only be about analog. It has to be the risk of digital, like we've just talked about, But most importantly, we will never get to that 2 million. We've got to de-risk by 2025. Only 10% of housing hardware is digital. That's a scary thought, that out of those 2 million, how many in sheltered housing and extra care, and only 10% are digital. So we have to start thinking about risk profiling, and you then working on your risk of your high complex needs, and how do we do safely, how do we take that forward. TSA will work with HousingLIN and work with housing colleagues to make sure there is a transition. This was absolutely fundamental in some of the work that you'll get coming from TAPPI and a safe transition. But the magic. I've worked as a co-chair within the Tech Action Alliance, and you've seen on that corner of the screen, Roy talked about a common language. He talked about principles of TAPPI. That's been the fundamental building blocks of the wider piece of work that we've done on what people really want from tech. It's a research with Sarah Alden at the University of Sheffield, and she's spoken to individuals, likes of our colleagues within TAPPI, and asked what they really want. 9 principles sits underneath of it, but we must make sure, and we will make sure, that the TAPPI principles, these ones that you see on the screen, are embedded into that. But what we need to really focus on is people, their families, and the unpaid carers. The work that the national body, and working with HousingLIN and others, we need to take common language. It doesn't matter where you are, and we learned this in TAPPI. They all describe something very different in a different terminology and a different meaning. So what we need to start doing is having a common language across the whole of UK with all of our housing colleagues, health colleagues, social care colleagues, what the public understand. And we'll be using these principles to build that over the coming months. There's the report. You will be able to see the further work that we're taking forward with the Tech Action Alliance, and this is really invaluable. I was in Warrington last week, where they've got a coordinated delivery with neighbourhood teams, their community health, their social care, their housing, all sitting around the table. And it was interesting how they got that right. They all understood from each of those disciplines what they were talking about in terms of integrated, seamless, co-produced service delivery. This is TSA. There's lots of materials, lots of case studies there for you, along with our TAPPI website on HousingLIN. But there's also a tech voice. Every bi-monthly, a tech voice will bring the new insights and the new case studies to life. Please access it. It's there, it's free. But more importantly, iTech. If you're not there, come along. Housing innovation, TAPPI, all of those key things around what people want, the language, evaluation, change management, standards, intelligent commissioning will be played out over a 2-day event. So thank you for listening. This was a wonderful experience for TSA. It was a wonderful experience for me personally, because I played out all of my ambitions for good, glorious lives in communities. And this was played through TAPPI. So thank you so much, Sue, for involving TSA and myself, because I've learned a hell of a lot. Back over to you, Sue.
Oh my goodness, Alison. Yes, I think we've all learned rather a lot from the experience, but I think as a group and a team, it's been a real delight. I now want to hand over to Dr. Hannah Marston of the Open University, who's going to talk to us a bit more, but just picking up that last point that Alison made about communities. She's going to talk about to draw on her work on age-friendly cities and communities and that broader societal element and the importance of not excluding people digitally. Over to you, Hannah.
Thank you so much. Just bear with me. Great. And thank you to Jeremy and his team and the other panel speakers today for the opportunity to share some insights from the work that I've been conducting with colleagues here in the UK and overseas. Following on from what Roy and Alison and Deborah have already mentioned about co-production, I want to touch on slightly about co-production and the importance of co-production. We all know it is important. And this project, the Adapt Tech Accessible Technology Project, or ATAT, started in December 2020. And it's led by my colleague, Dr. Deborah Morgan at Swansea University, and includes myself at the OU and colleagues at Northumbria, along with two stakeholders based in Newcastle and Cardiff. But what we did during the pandemic was run online workshops, enabling older people who had very little digital skills to come to these online workshops and to talk about what issues, concerns they had. And from that, and from those findings over 3 different workshops, one of the outputs has been this icon booklet. You can see from the slide here, there are several outputs, and there's a few more items to come out in the future. But what is nice about this icon booklet is it is in both English and Welsh. And I've given you a screenshot of one of the pages from the Welsh version. And this particular booklet, we only have one in at the moment that's accessible, which is also online and in paper format. Some of the older participants were saying how they didn't really understand the icons on their smartphones, what features and functions they were able to do, what other apps they could download. So on these 2 screenshots, you can see what kind of information we presented. It's only a few pages long, is the icon booklet. And last year and the year before, we conducted some more workshops with other participants, again, co-produced, to expand these insights and this work to see what else can be done. And, excuse me, and as what's previously been said already in this session, curriculum and for health and social care professionals to also have their digital literacy knowledge improved upon. For those who may or may not be aware, Policy Connect 2 years ago nearly published a report, and in that report it was featured how curricula in college and universities need to also implement assistive tech and technologies in general, even if it's an introduction to students on those health and social care programs. Because if they're going out into the community, they're likely to become engaged. I'm going to touch on affordability in soon, but with the ATAT project, we are looking at expanding this work and seeking out funding to be able to continue creating these booklets and to share the vital information that older people from our workshops have provided to us, which would in turn be able to be placed in libraries through community grassroots networks. The next section of this presentation relates to age-friendly cities and communities. And many of you will be familiar with this diagram put out by the WHO in 2007. Myself and colleagues in the Netherlands, we've been undertaking a body of work and still are undertaking a body of work looking at how the AFCC came about, looking at historical documents. You will see from some of the images on the screen in front of you and my writing that a lot of the footnotes and sentences that are there, the evidence or lack of for the creation of the AFCC is not evidence-based. It is, or it is primarily a US-centric database, which may not map over to UK or European communities. I do hope to have a paper out very soon, which will explain more on this topic. Back in 2019 and into the pandemic, myself and colleagues, we were talking about the need for technology, digital transformation. And in the previous model, you'll see that digital transformation or technology is not acknowledged, and which led to the 2019 paper written by myself and Professor Joost van Hoof to kind of push the narrative forward of the discourse within age-friendly cities and communities. And then as the pandemic hit, myself and colleagues from Ireland and Scotland were talking how pandemic is impacting all of us, different communities, rural communities, but also looking on a broader matter of sustainability, accessibility. And that's where the PACE framework was proposed theoretically. Both models do need evaluation, validation, but it gives an idea of how technology, along with other factors and domains, can actually be woven in to a community, whether it's a rural or an urban community, to encompass everybody. Our communities are not just made up of older people. They're made up of young children, people with disabilities, people in middle age. And in both of these papers, which are freely accessible, this is what we know, that age-friendly cities frameworks for the future should actually encompass everybody's needs. You may also be familiar with the dementia-friendly cities model, again, published by the World Health Organization in 2021. And this document doesn't really provide the evidence base for this new framework, although there are two additional domains, safety and carer support, which, as we know from literature, from personal experiences, from also talking to colleagues and undertaking research, carers also play a vital role in the dementia arena. And again, there's already been existing research conducted, whether it's at pilot level or bigger, relating to dementia and technology. Unfortunately and disappointingly, this digital transformation, technology, assistive aids have not been recognised in this framework. And in a book that I published a couple of years ago with colleagues, we talk about the need for the dementia-friendly environment or cities narrative to acknowledge technology. Technology, as we know, is playing a critical role in our society, in our daily lives, whether it's through online banking, paying for car parking tickets, booking train tickets, providing social care within the community, within the home. Some of you may be aware of the Age-Friendly Cities and Communities Questionnaire, or the AFCCQ. And this initially derived from Professor Joost van Hoof and Dr. Jeroen Deeken in the Netherlands. And their first paper, which was published in 2020 and is open access, describes the need for an additional domain to be added to the original AFCC model, which would be finance. And this survey, which this is the English version, can be rolled out into communities, by governments, by local authorities or stakeholders, to ascertain what are the actual needs and expectations from residents. I'm just going to move forward to slide 8. You will see the outputs that are currently published from the AFCCQ. So we have Turkey, Romania, North Macedonia, Japan, Russia, Israel and Poland We also have several sites that are currently underway. I'm leading the UK and Irish version. What is fascinating about this work, and to date, the data is concerned showing that many sites or residents within those sites concerned about finance. It's already been mentioned about affordability. Not everybody has vast amounts of income. Some people are fixed incomes because their pension, because of their pensions, or maybe, you know, people who are on welfare and they're in their 20s and 30s. Taking into account finance within our cities and communities has to be considered, whether it's rolling out technology or implementing new activities, cost-cutting measures. We have seen the cost of living crises in the UK over the last couple of years. But what are the benefits to the AFCCQ? To date, there is no quantitative measure for age-friendly cities and communities, with the exception of this survey. It's set in and founded in evidence-based research. I'm working with Milton Keynes Council at the moment, as well as Middlesbrough Council and Redcar and Cleveland Borough Councils, to roll out this survey across the 3 boroughs, and to identify and feed in to their directives. They will gain the data, they will see the insights as to what their actual residents want from them as a local authority. And that would also mean, if we go back to this traffic light system, areas or sections mapped against the AFC framework, housing, social participation, transport, you've got finance at the bottom. Based on the data that different local authorities receive, they can see what areas need to be reviewed. Therefore, anybody considering rolling out vanity projects or assuming that certain other activities are needed, whereas transport needs to be reviewed instead, they have the evidence there to make a business case to change different directives. Middlesbrough is a member of the WHO Age Friendly Network, and obviously this work that I'm conducting with them will feed into their wider, broader narratives. But if you want to understand more about how this AFCCQ works, the Hague is also a gold standard city in this sense, and they too can be found on the WHO's Age Friendly Network page. But if a local authority was to roll out this type of survey every 3 to 5 years, the local authority over a longer period of time will be able to see how things have changed in their communities, maybe try and preempt. But they can also be accountable to the residents that maybe vote in a mayor or vote in local councillors. But also it complements the qualitative data that is collected, and the data itself can be compared against other sites. We've seen already with the data from North Macedonia, that includes data from the Albanian, Macedonian and Romani communities. One of their main areas is finance, but finance is also important to people in other countries such as Russia or the Netherlands, rather than social inclusion. I mentioned earlier about the dementia-friendly cities and digital transformation, and working with co-authors who we published this book a couple of years ago, and we set out 12-point manifesto. This book is targeted at various audiences, whether you're an academic in gerontology or an academic in HCI, or you're a stakeholder. What is interesting about this book is one of the co-authors, Dr. Laura Stoops, works for Age Northern Ireland, and we have a whole chapter designated to the from the older people in Northern Ireland who, within their organisation, they are co-researchers, they feed into projects. And what Laura also wrote about was not only the findings from the older people, but people with disabilities and their experiences of using technology during the pandemic. If you want to know more, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And I've heard some fascinating information today, and I look forward to following up in the future. And if anybody would like to reach out to me, then here's my contact details. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Hannah. That was a pretty breathless run through some of the wider work that's going on. And I really just want to pick up on a point there that you made about international comparisons, because it struck me early on, particularly with Angus's change in job title, recent change in job title, that you're now head of global market access. Whether or not you can think, Angus, of any particular international comparisons that we should be looking to, that anybody else out there who's doing technology-enabled integration really well?
That's put me on the spot 3 weeks in, Sue.
I'm so sorry. I'll come back.
There are certainly from a Tunstall and telecare perspective, we've got different territories across the globe that are doing things, a lot that are similar to how we do things in the UK, but a lot where there are different markets and different dynamics to the telecare solution, if you like. So if you were to look at our Spanish model, for example, it's a lot more government-led and government tender focused, where the contract is that the provider will do everything. So whether that's from referring in to the whole sort of the hospital and triage process and sending clinicians out to support people where they are at home in order to take pressure off the system. And I think for me, it's about understanding and improving outcomes for citizens. At the end of the day, they are the people that we are serving with the technology solutions that we have. And if we understand the outcomes that authorities want to focus on, is it falls prevention? Is it dementia? Is it something else? And then how do we link all of the TAPPI principles in about co-production, listening to what people want, how to deliver better services in a cost-effective way? And cost effectiveness and funding is so important. Also in a digital way with the principles of proactive and preventative solutions, then we're onto a winner. But it's such a huge sort of thing we've got to approach. We almost need to take it in sort of bite-sized pieces and make sure that we are doing the right thing at the right time for the right people.
No, and I think doing the right thing for the people is key. That's very much a message that we've heard about from everybody today, and yet somehow it doesn't seem to be happening. And so I've got a question for you actually, Roy. If you were able to take over social media for a week, who would be the key stakeholders in all of this that you would target with those messages? Because we've talked about government and we've talked about, you know, service providers, but you've talked about sort of creating a movement. Is it time for there to be a demand-led movement, do you think?
Well, there is. I mean, that's a great question, Sue. I have an opinion based on sort of 40 years of work, and that is that change can happen from the top and from the bottom. Policy change from the top in today's world just doesn't seem to be happening for us. Despite the fact, by the way, that I am sort of offering to the policymakers sort of crystallized ideas on how to make system change happen. And I do talk to them, you know, but so for example, that Centre for Care Innovation, that's like a no-brainer. They'd only have to put 10 million in And we could probably get people like Angus and indeed others in the sector all to buy into delivery of that. In addition, a national strategy for independent living is another no-brainer. Because then they could act as the strategic conveners. Now, you ask me who? Policy downwards, I mean, my experience is always that the place to really get action to happen is with Treasury. And honestly, if we could just hook into some significant players in Treasury and say, look, we've got a crisis here that needs crisis response, and it needs the kind of initiatives I've described, that would be the right place to go from a policy point of view. From the bottom-up point of view, my opinion is that if we can get people in our sector and our in all aspects of the sector, the multi-agencies, you know, the health bit and the housing bit, trained well to ask the TAPPI questions every day, that would work too. It's amazing, by the way, how many GPs I talk to who do not get the vast opportunity that exists in the context of an application of technology for independent living or social prescribing. It's amazing how many chairs of NHS trusts don't get this. Now, there's a bottom-up movement that everybody on this call could be part of. Where? In whatever organization they work in. Now, final point, I think regional and local people have a lot of a big part to play in this. By the way, I actually do believe that people like Deborah have a big part to play in this, because people listen to her and listen to her a lot more than listen to me. But I think regional leaders in the NHS trusts, in regional housing developers, in regional housing agencies, and I know that Alison's got some excellent contacts in the north with respect to that, and ICBs. Big call, but that's where I'd go.
I'm really interested in that point about localities sort of driving that change, because when we set up TAPPI and when we set up the second phase of TAPPI and we set up the test beds, that was to sort of help to drive that change in localities and neighborhoods. But in doing that, we also wanted to create a set of resources, and those resources, people have touched on it throughout their presentations, are openly available. So Roy's just recruited everybody on this call to this. I want to say to them, you're not alone. The help is out there. The work is being published. And I wanted to come back on, there's one question that we've had in on the Q&A from Maggie Gilbert, who said about it's wonderful that technology is being brought into the lives of older people. But she's got a concern because her daughter draws on care and doesn't understand the technology. And she wonders whether TAPPI is being developed for people like her daughter. Well, I mean, yes, we developed TAPPI within the context of older people's communities, largely because as a funder, our charitable objects require us to do so. But we wanted those resources that I talked about to be entirely agnostic. So they are out there, they are applicable, they are age independent, you know, they are applicable to anybody. And one of the things I think that we were very careful to do, I think a couple of our speakers have touched on the importance of language and a shared language around things that everybody can understand, because technology can be quite inaccessible. And it was in the very final meeting that we had, when we had some of the co-production champions there, when we were trying to sort of distill the TAPPI principles. And one of them said, the problem is with you lot, you're all talking in professional language. Make it simple. And it was a really, you know, it's a great reminder. And that's, you know, it's a great thing. We need to keep it simple, and we need to keep it about people. So, and I think that's what we've tried to do with TAPPI, and I think that's a big message between, you know, with what's been coming out today.
Can I just say,
sorry, go on, Roy.
Maggie's, it's very sad that Maggie's daughter's not able to engage with that technology.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
there are places that I visited, and I've been very lucky to be able to, to engage with experts in this context. I visited some new vulnerable individuals housing initiatives around the country, and I'm thinking here particularly of Sunderland, by the way, where the people who are the users have provided their everyday language needs, their needs in everyday language for the people who are delivering. Why that wouldn't happen everywhere, Maggie, God only knows. She has no, she's saying she has no speech at all and very little comprehension, but there must be ways in which people who are around her, who know her well, can reflect her demands.
No, absolutely.
It's sad that stuff is being done to her instead of stuff being done with her. And yeah. I mean, Deborah's, I'm speaking of things which people on this call know, but anyway.
Yeah. Sorry, just bring Jeremy's just got his hand up. I see you want to get in, Jeremy.
I think I just snuck in before Alison, but just to pick up on Maggie's point, I don't think any relation, but we had a wonderful member of our advisory board, Clive Gilbert, who used speech platforms in order to articulate as an advisory board member to the TAPPI. And as a result of his interventions and support of the project, we also drew on real local innovations. And in Wales, for example, the Innovation Trust, working with children with a learning disability and profound complexities, and also some work from University of Sheffield. So in Roy's presentation, he drew attention to the Happy Report. We were so impressed by these that we captured those in that report. And in fact, Alison made a point in her presentation, but it's all about glorious lives. This and the social care future is something we need to do, and the power of co-production has to be played alongside the high-level treasury things that Roy has highlighted.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Alison.
Going back to Maggie's point, TAPPI principles, yes, it was fundamentally built around people with disabilities, etc., but there is wonderful technologies out there, as we've just described with Clive. And it's not about just doing things that our industry's got. And I'm sure Angus will agree. It's knowing what the problem is and how do we work with our sector to find the solution. And I would just, Maggie, there's lots of stuff on our website. I'll get you in touch with our membership who will put you in connect with any of our suppliers who will work with you to find solutions for your daughter. We should not exclude anyone, because what we are trying to do is glorious lives, and it's about people staying in their community. And if the community is a care home, we've got to embrace someone in a care home to live a glorious life. Doesn't matter where it's at. So Maggie, get in our connections together with, and we will find or put you in contact with someone who can support you with the solution. I just wanted to go back to the point, Sue, about international. We in the UK have an issue with analog to digital and the wonderful magic, but they don't have that issue in Europe, further afield, Australia, etc., because the government mandate what is the shift and how they're going to do it. And I think we just need to catch up and really lobby Treasury and our government for them to mandate things, to move our commissioning and our landscape, to make sure we catch up with our colleagues. And Angus is nodding his head in delight if we actually get that to happen. So great conversation today, but there is opportunity there.
Absolutely. Deborah, just I'm going to pick up a question that's come in from Diana, but just briefly, Deborah, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute, Deborah.
Sorry. I was just going to say a quick note on Maggie. One of the gentlemen here, he's non-verbal. and we got him a tablet, and there was so many different softwares that he could use. He was able to use his eyes. He was able to, you have choice of using your eyes to tell different words and things like that. He was able to use one finger to point and touch different things. So there's loads of software out there that nobody should be excluded. And it was important that we got him on to TAPPI, because if TAPPI couldn't have done anything for him, then it failed, and it didn't fail. So now he's actually, after he's now 50, and he's not been able, and now he understands everything. Now he's able to communicate as well.
Fantastic.
So don't give up, Maggie.
Great story. I just want to come, there's another question coming from Diana Robinson asking about the role for planners in incorporating technology in every kind of development, which I think is a great question. Jeremy and I were privileged to participate in a roundtable convened by the government's older people's housing task force recently, where this came up, and we had a number of planners in the room. I mean, from my perspective, absolutely, I think it should be built into the building regulations. It should be a requirement for new build and for adaptable housing. But I don't know, Jeremy, you've probably got views on this.
Yeah, I mean, two things. First of all, this week was the launch of the PropTech Digital Fund by government, which is very much about how the planning authorities need to become much more digitally enabled. It's about their own streamlining their systems rather than actually the outcome for end users. It's very much aimed at planning officers. But there is a much bigger issues about making sure at a spatial level, we are building in 5G, 6G, and thinking about how we're planning for that. So when Manchester launched their age-friendly strategy this Friday, I'm hoping in there will not just be about new accessible housing for an ageing population, for the population of Greater Manchester, but also about the digital approach that they'll be taking, and perhaps again building on Hannah's work about that age-friendly city and the digital-friendly city as well. And Roy, yeah, I'm with you. Free access as well.
Absolutely. Well, I think there are no more questions in the Q&A that are coming in. I think we've had a really good conversation there. We've seen some great presentations, and I think we're probably now with exactly 30 seconds to go, Jerome. So how's that for timing?
Well, that's absolutely brilliant. And, Jerome, I think we'll bring it to an end, if that's all right. I think we have one final slide, but on behalf of the HousingLIN, can I thank everybody who's participated this afternoon. Sue, thanks for chairing so beautifully. Thanks, Tunstall, for your sponsorship and support and ongoing support, Angus and the team. And thanks all of you for making this such a really important learning exercise, but also giving us and galvanizing us to take action, because actually, you know, it is something we need to take on. And please do join us at the iTech conference in March, because again, that's a really important stage where we're going to really sharpen the focus around TAPPI and support that wider implementation through things like the Tech Action Alliance and the co-production works. So on behalf of the HousingLIN, thank you very much. Can I also thank colleagues behind the scenes as well as in front of the scenes. You see here Jerome and Sally, but also Alice, who's participated in this. Please do get in touch with us to complete the feedback form that will be on the screen as we log off. If you'd like to take part in a future HousingLIN event or have a theme that you'd like to suggest, please let us know. If you'd like to become a corporate sponsor of the LIN and be involved and engage with us in other ways, please drop us an email. We look forward to hearing from you so that we can continue both our networked activities, but also drive forward that improvement and learning that we are passionate about here at the HousingLIN. We really look forward to seeing you. I hope some of you will join us for the remainder sessions that we have for you this week, including ones on inclusion with Lord Best on Friday, issues around collaborative housing on Friday morning, and tomorrow morning we kick off looking at future leadership and some of the work we've been doing with our Future Leaders programme. So on behalf of the HousingLIN, many thanks for joining us this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now.